Well, how's it going, Peter? What's your reaction to how it's gotten started?
It's actually been great. It's great to get on the field. The players have been very motivated, excited to be back out there. You can see as much as you can with individual workouts. You can see the camaraderie because they bring at a minimum 8 players, sometimes 12 if we're using 3 fields. But when we're using 2, it's 8. So, it's been good. The guys have worked very hard. Our fitness staff did a really good job while the guys were in quarantine and not allowed to do individual workouts with us. And I would also say that the individual protocol has worked very well, and the club that put it together did a pretty good job.
Peter, you talked about the fitness. That was your biggest concern, getting back to playing and what the fitness would be like for your players. How would you assess the overall fitness level of the guys now?
I would just say that the guys have at least maintained some foundation of fitness. I think what's hard is when you can't play against each other, 4v4, 5v5, and all the way up to 11v11. It's very difficult to look at game fitness, but the guys did a good job of keeping a solid foundation of fitness, and that piece has happened pretty darn well. And like I said, I commend our fitness staff as well for what they were doing on a regular basis with the guys.
Peter, I'd imagine that Kansas City is a little different in terms of some of the stuff than back east out here. But what's the sense of, from you on the Orlando plan, and also whether you're hearing anything from your players about whether they're any worried?
I'll be honest with you, we're not really brought up to speed too much about the idea of that plan. I mean, I've heard about it as well. The specifics, I don't know a ton. I know that there's been discussion with the players. To be honest with you, from my point of view, all I'm interested in is a game date, because then it's easy for me to work backwards from there. It's really hard as we're going forward right now. I have individual training to be preparing for something that we don't know yet. What is the date of that, first game? And so it's really reverse engineering. I need to know the game date, and then I can work backwards from there. Regarding the players, obviously they're working with the Players Union and the CBA and the league. That has nothing to do with me. So to be honest with you, I have stayed completely away from that piece of it. But I will say that the tournament aspect, whether it's a tournament aspect, we've talked about one where there's 4 cities. I've heard 1 city. At the end of the day, I think all of us as teams want to get back to playing games as soon as possible for so many different reasons. But and I would say the players, I think, want to do that as well. But we all want to make sure we're doing it in a safe environment, and also we're doing it in a meaningful way.
If I can follow up real quick, how much conversation is there among various managers about the differences between various parts of the country? Because I would imagine, it's one way in Orlando, it's one way back east where your family in Delran is, and it's another way in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's so true. I've said this before, I'll say it now too, and that is the genesis of the individual workout started with us because I was speaking to all the players on one day. It was one day I called them all in the same day, and I asked them all a question at the end of my conversation: is there anything that we could do for you? And all of them said, hey, listen, it would just be great if we could get on the fields at Pinnacle at our training facility, which is now named Compass Minerals National Performance Center. The idea was, and they all said for a man, I mean, all the guys on the team said, could we just open up the gates and let us practice on our field? So I called the league. And I said, hey, you guys have a problem with us letting the guys just go practice on our fields? And they're like, no chance, no way, no way. So then what we did was we went back and said, there's no doubt that we could do this in a very safe environment. There's no doubt, because what they currently have available to them, you got to remember, you got New York and you got, say, Kansas City. New York was on complete lockdown, couldn't even go to a park, couldn't do anything. Whereas you walk around here, I go for a walk by my house, or a run, and I have a golf course there. I'm exaggerating, completely full. You can't find a spot. It's full. People are playing golf. People are putting on the green. People are chipping on the green. People are at the driving range. And we're allowed to participate in all the parks around here. So what the players had available to them, in my opinion, it was so much more dangerous for those alternatives than what we could provide at our private facility. And so we put a video together to show that we could do it. That's where this all started. And so a lot of the managers were calling me and asking me, because they had started to find out about the video, they wanted to see it. And that's what really pushed the league along to start to really looking at return to training protocol.
How's it going, man? Harold, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Hey, we were talking to manager Mike Matheny last week, and he said there's some players that do have concern and then some who don't. What are you kind of measured out of your players that have maybe, I guess we'll call it like a fear tolerance, if you will, about proceeding with the schedule without a vaccine or anything of that nature? Then how have you kind of proceeded with some of the players who are just like, hey, let's just play. I don't care what happens.
Yeah, so currently, first of all, our individual workouts are voluntary. So it's not mandatory for the guys to come and if they choose not to, then we just provide workouts for them where they're at and what they have available to them and what they feel comfortable doing. And there's a lot of teams like that around the league. What I can tell you is we're not getting to the next phases of any of this stuff without testing. When we start training where we have to play, 7 against 7 or whatever in training, we're going to have testing incorporated into that phase. We start playing games, we're going to have the same thing. And so I think everybody is very mindful of the safety aspect. I'm also very respectful of people's individual decisions here. And I understand that there is some that are maybe a little bit more concerned. I know there's some guys that have been concerned. Their wives are pregnant, different things like that. So we're very cognizant of it. We're very open to it. And there's no pressure on the guys to do one thing or the other.
You feel the league rushing maybe? Perhaps?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. Because as I said, the alternatives that we had for our guys to go and train, and you guys all have to remember too, they're professional athletes. That's their business. They have to stay fit. So they're going to find a way to do that. For us, it was just trying to find a way that they could do it in the most safest way possible. They go around town. They're famous guys. You got Polito going out to a field, and all of a sudden, within 10 minutes, somebody sees him in social media. There's 30 people out there, and they all want to take a picture with him. We can't put him in that position. And so the fact that we're able to now provide a much private environment is great. But I can tell you that we're taking all the steps and all the precautions to make sure as we move through these next phases that testing is going to be a part of that protocol.
Peter, you talking about the testing part. What have you heard? I asked this of Jake Reed here a week and a half ago or so whenever we had our conversation with him. Like, do you guys have tests? The answer then was no. Do you have tests at Pinnacle right now? If not, or if you have a limited amount, that's one of the big subjects, right? Supply of tests. Are you confident that you will have the supply that you need and when?
We're working on 2 different tracks right now. All of our players and staff will be taking obviously to find out if we actually have the virus. That's 1. And 2 is we'll also be taking the antibody test to see if we actually had it at some point and built up antibodies towards it. We're not sure if we're going to do that Friday or Monday. And then the idea from that is that we also have a individual person that is doing nothing but working on Sporting Kansas City's testing protocol going forward for small group training, full team training, and then games, as well as the league is doing the same. But each and every team has been also requested to go out and start to search for partners within their locale, because we don't want to do a test and then have to send it to New York for them to then send it back to us. We need a much quicker turnaround. So we've been working on that as well. And we think we have a very good solution in both situations. The reason why we're doing the first one is we're doing it as a trial run for us, if you will. It's not required right now by the league, but we're going to do it as a trial run for us.
So just to be clear, you have tests there on site?
No, we do.
Okay.
I don't want to say it that way. We will have the tests in both, like I said, because I don't want to do them separate of each other.
Right.
I want to do them both at the same time from a time perspective and also efficiency. I don't want the guys that have to go 2 times to the facility in and out or whatever, however we decide that protocol is going to be. But we will, yes, have tests, whether it's Friday or next Monday, and we'll be actually administering them as well. And they will be on site. We believe we will do that. We believe right now we'll do that here at Compass Minerals National Performance Center.
All right, and not to belabor the point, but this is big, right? This really is the issue. It seems for all sports around there. So, is this a sporting has procured these, or the MLS has procured these tests? Like, I mean,
sporting. Sporting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
again, we've been all requested by the league to start to look for partners within our locale to try to make sure that we, as we move closer and closer to a start date, that we have the ability to pull this off from a testing point of view, because you don't want to take a test and have to put it to a courier who has to fly it, halfway across the country to then get the results. We want to be able to have that quick turnaround within our locale. And that's what we've been working on for quite some time. And now we're getting to the point, again, like I said, we're not required to take tests at this time, but we're going to kind of do a trial run to see where everybody is and see how we would perform that going forward. Because as you know, look, nothing's ever perfect when you first do it. Just like when we first started the individual workouts, there's just little things that you have to kind of work through, and we want to be able to do that as well, so that we're actually really good at it.
A couple more follow-ups just on the subject. Number one, by the way, I too, as you said in your first answer, celebrate whatever team came up with the protocol for the individual testing. Nice work to those folks.
Yeah, those guys did a great job.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
Those guys, you shared that with everybody, right?
Correct.
You've gone out and found the tests. Are you going to share that with everybody?
If we have to, and if it's feasible to somehow, how should I say this? If we come across the company and they can administer this to all the other teams in the league, then we would be extremely supportive of that. I mean, look, this isn't competition. Hey, we get the test and you guys don't. We're trying to make this work, and our owners are all partners in this business, right, of MLS. And so it only makes sense for us to try to help each other. And if whether it's us or somebody else comes up with a really good way to do something and we can benefit from that, then we're going to. And we're going to try to help as much as we can to get back on the field in the best way we can, right? It's not a look who's first to doing this. It's really trying to get everybody to be able to do this together and do it in a meaningful, safe way.
Have you gotten to the point of what you do with a positive test? Like if you get things going and somebody's positive, is it still in the works, or are you confident that you can pull them out? And
yeah, part of our individual workouts. So, every guy does come in every morning, and there is a protocol. I mean, we don't have tests, but we take temperatures and we have questionnaires guys have to fill out before they go to bed. Then they have to fill it in the morning before they come to training. And they do this every day. They can't show up if they don't do it. Same thing with the staff. On top of that, everybody gets their temperature taken. And so let's just assume that a player comes in and, he feels great, but we notice that he has a high temperature. We immediately have a protocol that kicks in, that then he goes immediately is sent to our CMO, which is our chief medical officer for our club. And there's a whole protocol for that. And if they're found tested, because we're doing individual group workouts and we have guys that are associated to fields, we then know who would be around those guys in some proximity. So then we could easily then go and then actually go have those people tested, and then we could backtrack against all of those guys. The good thing is that the way that we're separated, I'm telling you right now, it isn't. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, because I'm not a doctor, but I would tell you that it is incredibly impossible, incredibly difficult for someone to infect another.
I guess my question is looking forward. Do you have a plan for when you do start the group training and guys are in close proximity?
We do. Okay. We do. So I have a call this afternoon on this committee for now. It's the next phase of return to play, which is a small group training. So we already have it. We're just finalizing a couple other pieces to that testing aspect, but we already have a protocol in mind for every team as well. And that's why the groups, right? There's only a certain number that we'll have, so that when you have all those players together, you then know if somebody in that group is, let's say, test positive, then that group is the one group that will be together the whole time. We're not going to be switching the guys up every day. So now we have different players. They'll be staying within their group. So we'll try to keep that consistent, and then you'll be able to work backwards from there.
Peter, going back to the individual workouts, I have a couple of questions. Number one, you mentioned, and as we know, these are voluntary workouts. What's the percentage of players is it 100%? Are there any players that are not participating in the voluntary workouts?
So we have a couple of players that are injured. that obviously they're working out, but they're not participating in those individual workouts. And then we have one player who right now is working out on his own.
Are you allowed to say who that is? Or?
I'd rather not. I'd rather not, just because he doesn't need the questions. But it's something that I completely understand and agree with what he's doing. But I'm very confident in that the way that he's handling it, we're handling it from a training perspective. He's getting all the same information the rest of our guys are doing. Only thing for him is he has a lot more work to do because he's got to set up the stuff that we do for the players. So hopefully by the time he's done, he'll be a coach.
My second question, what has your communication been like now, a week into these individual workouts with the league? Have they been checking in to make sure that certain protocols are being followed? What are the check-ins like with the league to ensure that things are going as planned?
Yeah, I can't speak for the other teams. Maybe that's something to do with the fact that I'm on these committees. I don't know, but they definitely ask how it's going. Are there any pitfalls based on the initial protocol, that type of thing? I think there really hasn't been anything glaring. I think it's just more some common sense things that, could be tweaked here or there because, and if you saw our video, I mean, as one, colleague of mine from a different club called me and said, like, this is absolutely over the top. And it was, because we wanted to make sure that it was done correctly, but you also have to adapt and adjust it to your facilities, your resources at your place. Cause not everybody's like Compass Minerals National Performance Center.
Are you being asked by other leagues or other coaches outside of soccer about some of these ideas? Because you're pretty much on the cutting edge of helping your team, move forward and getting the league to kind of, make use of facilities like you have.
So I'll tell you right now, there's a couple baseball teams that requested our video and asked if they could use it. And there's a really big league in the world that asked if they could use it as well. And because they were putting together a return to play protocol, and we're asking if they could use it, and then they would give us credit for, using it. But of course, we shared it. It was no big deal.
You indicated that the players were really eager to get back and they requested it and everything else. Do you find yourself in a position where you almost have to chase them off the field that they want to do so much, or what are the workouts like?
No, because I will tell you that as much as they've worked very hard, obviously we're doing things that they didn't have access to before, right? So we also have formalized sort of there's only so much you can do, right? So basically you're doing a warm-up. You're doing what we call a technical functional aspect of the training, which usually has a level of fitness required for that technical functional piece. And then we always finish off with something that is fitness. So by the time the fitness is done, they're ready to be done and like, okay, it's time to go home. And I will say that, look, the guys have been, from week to week, they've been sore and they've had to, recover. But like today, we're not even training with them. Today's a yoga day that they're doing on Zoom at home, because we have to also be really smart in how we're building them up. But they still are very motivated to come here every day. They really are.
The Bundesliga is going to start up this week. Eyes on it, just from a soccer fan standpoint. How exciting is that, and how much do you think obviously MLS is going to be paying attention to it? Just to follow up, what would it be a sense for you as a player in your time to just play in front of an empty stadium?
Well, unfortunately, I did that quite a bit in my time. So I can speak as an expert on that. What I would say is that, look, I can't go back to it. I think that the time that we're in right now is a very difficult one. I think everybody knows that we're trying to get out of this, and every little bit helps. And so it's not going to be easy from a motivational point of view for those players, because Germany, when those teams play, they play in front of full stadiums no matter which team's playing. So they're used to some really good environments. But I also think that they realize, the obligation that they have right now, they're making sure that it's a safe environment, but also think that they feel that they're probably a part of trying to help the country get back to some normalcy. I've seen actually their protocol for these games, and it is outstanding in how they're bringing in people over the course of a day, step-by-step production crew, talent for, commentating the game, certain points of the day, and how they keep them sequestered in certain areas so they're not connecting with each other. It's actually pretty impressive. So hopefully we're going to be able to use that as at least an example, and hopefully then we can adapt it to some of the things that we're going to do as well.
Hey, Peter, once again, you said you like to work backwards to a game date. Could you just measure the level of where the players are at now as compared to like when you're in Arizona training for a first date as to now? Like, what do you think that timetable involved with? If you see them now, you're like, okay, I think 6 weeks, I think 7 weeks. Like, where do you think you are right now?
Well, I think where the difficulty is the fact that it depends on what we're given. So if you gave me right now 3 weeks to 4 weeks of full team training, we as a staff could get the team ready to play a game. But it just depends on what that time frame is. But if you're telling me the whole time I'm playing individual trainings all the way up to a first game, that's going to be very difficult. It comes more of whatever that game date is, and then working backwards with what, like if you say, hey, you're going to have 2 weeks of full team training, and then you're going to have 2 weeks of small group training. Okay, then I know what I can work with, and we as a staff will try to put the best, plan and progression leading up to that game for the guys to be ready to play. You also got to take into consideration, and we do as well, is that we're all in the same boat here, really. So it's not like one team's getting this incredible advantage over the other.
And the fear factor, like with injuries, because you're thinking about going to Orlando, or some people said Arizona for things like, and it's hot there. And, you haven't really got everything. Like, what's the fear level with that from everybody's standpoint?
Well, I would like to think that there would be a buildup in whichever area we went to, or whichever area, like if they came to Kansas City, there would be a time period in market that they would use to get acclimated to whatever that environment was.
Now, obviously, no one really knows yet how the league is going to come back, but you guys got off to such a good start with 2 wins. Should those results stand from the 2 wins that you've got? Should that be taken into account?
If we lost both of them, I'd say no. But since we won both of them, I'm going to say yes. I mean, look, they should be a part of it, absolutely. Because not all kidding aside, we've all played 2 games, so we're not starting the season; we're restarting the season. So should they be? Yes. And if they're not, what am I going to do about it? That I'm sure the owners will be making that decision. They're not going to call me and say, what do you think? So,
Peter, you were talking earlier about the testing program that you guys are trying to come up with. And again, I realize it's because I'm in this part of the country where we're still on lockdown and things are different. But with all the teams in the various parts of the U.S. and Canada cannot get access to the same degree of testing that you guys have. And again, I realize I'm being the doomsday guy and I don't enjoy it. But if it can't happen before all the teams go to Orlando, then what?
You mean for us?
For in general. Because I think there's a possibility that not all the teams are going to be able to get the testing that you guys are able to get.
Yeah, no, I would say that I would agree with you that I don't work on the failures. I work on the achievements. And so the idea is that I'm an optimist. I'm thinking that everybody's going to get there. Everybody's going to work to try to get there. And so I have to come up with a solution for our club. We have to work hard to try to figure that out. And as I said earlier, if we can somehow help some other cities out or whatever, look, I've said this all along. It's kind of the same idea behind the individual workouts. There are some cities that are more restricted than we are, but also there are some that are probably a little bit afraid to come out and make the decision. What I stated all along is that if you guys let us come out and do this and we show success, then that could help with some of the other cities to say, hey guys, to their local government and say, look, Sporting Kansas City is pulling this off. They're able to do it. Can you guys feel a little more comfortable with this now that you see someone having some demonstrated performance? Is that pie in the sky? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to keep working towards coming out of this. I'm not going to sit around just waiting for somebody else to do something. Again, whether teams are coming here to 4 different cities, whether we're going to one city, what have you, I think we got to keep looking for solutions. And we're going to keep trying to do that no matter what the case is. And if for some reason it gets canceled, I don't think what we've done is for nothing. I think we just got to keep moving towards the next piece.
Thanks, Peter. Much appreciated.